Are you tired of feeling like your stomach has its own agenda? Like the bloating, gas, or constant trips to the bathroom are running your life? Welcome to the Beyond Bloated podcast, the podcast where we tackle those frustrating gut issues head on, without strict diets or giving up your favorite foods. I'm Carly, a certified gut health coach who's been there, struggling with bloating that made me look 6 months pregnant, gut pain that kept me from enjoying meals, and fatigue so draining it felt impossible to get through the day. Now, I help women like you find freedom from those symptoms and take back control of their lives. Each week, we'll debunk gut health myths, dive into simple, actionable tips, and hear stories from women who've been exactly where you are. It's time to feel confident, energized, and bloat-free. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Beyond Bloated podcast, or welcome for the very first time. Today, we are talking about something that I see every single day working with women. Diet culture is real, and us women have definitely been the target of that. And a lot of the messaging around dieting and weight loss and how to look good is to cut carbs. For some reason, carbs are deemed the enemy, and the reason why we can't lose weight, why our guts are messed up, why our lives suck is because you eat carbs, allegedly. So this episode is dedicated to all the women out there who have cut carbs once upon a time, or maybe you are currently eating a very low or no carb diet in hopes for more energy, less bloating, or to lose that stubborn weight. I am here to bust the carb myth and explain why your gut actually needs carbohydrates to thrive. Let's start off by talking a little bit more about how we got to this carb-hating place in the first place. This carb fear didn't come out of nowhere. It started decades ago with the rise of specific diets like the Atkins diet, and then later we saw keto, and then paleo, and all of the modern spin-offs of these carb-limiting diets. These diets gained popularity for their rapid weight loss effects, which, of course, is what the media and diet culture loves to promote. The Atkins diet tells us that bread and pasta are the enemy. Keto says avoid anything with more than a few grams of carbs, even fruit. And the paleo diet made us feel like unless we were foraging it or spearing it ourselves, we should not touch it. What all of these diets have in common is that they demonize carbohydrates. At first glance, cutting carbs might seem like it works because you do lose weight quickly. Your bloating might go down temporarily. And so you feel like you found the solution and that carbs truly were the enemy all along. But I want to be super clear here. What you are seeing is not long-term health or healing. Most of the initial weight loss is water retention, and the symptom relief is often just from eating less overall or cutting out inflammatory processed foods, not because you cut out carbs specifically. Then, of course, there is the social media component. We're all on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, all the things, and every single day, us women are told, cut carbs to cut belly fat. Carbs will spike your insulin and cause weight gain. You can't burn fat if you're eating carbs. And the craziest one, fruit is sugar, and sugar is toxic. Therefore, do not touch fruit because it is also toxic. This messaging is shared over and over again on social media and gets thousands of likes and shares, and they're usually coming from people with zero education in gut health, metabolism, or even the female body. They're often targeted towards women who are struggling and just want answers, which is why the message gets promoted, because I know what it's like to feel desperate to want an answer. And if you see something that makes a little bit of sense, it has a ton of likes and shares, and it's promoted by some influencer that you like, of course you're going to believe it. But here's the problem. They completely ignore context. These blanket statements don't take into account your stress levels, which, by the way, raises your blood sugar levels, your gut health, literally the current state of your gut, and the fact that your gut relies on fiber-rich carbs to function properly. Your hormones, which need glucose to maintain balance, especially your thyroid and estrogen, and your nervous system, which gets thrown into fight or flight, which is our stress response, when you are underfed and not eating enough carbs. I would also like to point out that most of these diets are studied very short term. So yes, you may lose a few pounds or feel lighter and cleaner for a few weeks, but I work with women who have been doing these diets for months or sometimes years. And what I see over and over again is their digestion getting worse. They feel very anxious and wired, but tired at the same time. They gain the weight back and then some, and their periods get weird and wonky. Their sleep is awful, and their energy is non-existent. So if you have been following this low-carb, no-carb diet, and you're like, why isn't this working for me? The truth is that your body is not broken, but you are not giving it the fuel that it needs to thrive. I recently worked with a woman who was in her 50s, and she was deathly afraid of carbs. She would not touch them. She thought they were evil, and she thought she was doing a great thing for herself by avoiding carbs for all this time. So when she came to me and was struggling with a lot of brain fog and exhaustion and, of course, digestive issues, she had no idea why, because she thought she's eating really well, she's eating healthy, she's avoiding the demon carbs, so why doesn't she feel good? She was also exercising very regularly. So not only was she not fueling her body enough, just baseline, but on top of that, she was also working out like 5 times a week, which means you need even more carbs and fuel. So of course she was feeling exhausted and just overall not great. So we worked on adding more carbs into her diet slowly because she was very afraid, but she did. She started adding sweet potato and rice and fruit, and she liked it. First of all, she was excited that she could eat these things again. And she started getting more energy, and she stopped having to nap throughout the day. And she felt really good after her workout classes and said her recovery time was faster and her digestion improved. And it was all because she wasn't eating enough and she wasn't eating enough carbs. That is just one example of the many, many women that I work with who are very afraid of carbs. And because of that, they have cut them from their diet and they have experienced a ton of symptoms from that. So allow me to walk you through some of the symptoms that I commonly see in women who are on these low or no carb diets. I want to start by saying that carbs, especially from whole foods like oats, fruit, sweet potatoes, lentils, etc., are your gut's primary source of fuel. So when we restrict carbs, we are often drastically reducing fiber intake, and that is one of the most important things that keeps our digestion moving. So if we are not eating enough carbs, our motility slows down, which means food is going to sit in your gut for longer, which can then cause bloating, gas, fermentation. Constipation becomes a lot more common, and that impacts your body's ability to detox hormones and waste. And your gut bacteria start to starve because they literally feed on fiber. And when they don't get fed, they die. And as they are dying, the bad bacteria, the more inflammatory bacteria start to take over and they start to thrive. And that is when you will start to experience some real nasty symptoms. Very ironically, many women are cutting carbs thinking that it is going to help with their bloating. But at the end of the day, they end up with even more bloating with gas, and now they're constipated, and they're having a lot of other symptoms that I'm going to get to as well. As I just talked about, the client that I was working with was experiencing a lot of brain fog and fatigue, and this is because your brain runs almost entirely on glucose. And glucose is the simplest form of sugar that comes from carbohydrates. So when you cut carbs too low, you probably will feel very mentally foggy or forgetful. Your energy will crash mid-morning or mid-afternoon, and you'll need that afternoon nap. And you'll feel like you're running on fumes, even if you're technically eating enough calories. Our bodies are very intelligent. They do not want to burn fat when it is in survival mode. It wants to keep you alive. So if your brain doesn't have enough fuel, your body slows everything else down to conserve energy because it's protecting you. Carbs are also essential for healthy thyroid function, which affects everything from your metabolism to your mood, energy, digestion, and of course, your period. So when you undereat carbs, your body produces less T3, which is your active thyroid hormone. Your cortisol can go up, which is your stress hormone, and this can suppress your thyroid even further. You might see your cycle become irregular or disappear entirely, especially if the undereating of carbs is combined with stress or overexercising, kind of what I explained in my client example. She wasn't eating enough carbs, period, and then she was exercising hardcore like 5 days a week. Now, of course, I'm not talking about eating more donuts to fix your thyroid condition, but it is about bringing back those very slow burning, nourishing carbs that your endocrine system actually relies on. One of the most common and most frustrating things that I hear from women is that they're eating clean, they've cut out carbs, they're exercising regularly, so why isn't the weight coming off? They think they're broken, they think they have some sort of hormone imbalance, they think it's menopause, they blame all these sorts of things, but the truth is that cutting carbs can lead to initial weight loss, as I already mentioned, and that is mostly from water, but in the long term, it often leads to metabolic slowdown, which means it's going to be way harder for you to lose weight. It increases your stress hormones like cortisol, which promote fat storage, especially around the belly area. And it can lead to muscle loss, which lowers your overall calorie burn. So even if you're losing weight, if it's muscle, is that really what we want? I don't think so. When you drastically limit carbs, your body is getting the message that there is not enough food. So everything slows down, it goes into survival mode, and that is the opposite of what you want if you are trying to feel energized and lose weight sustainably. Not very quickly in the short term, because it's not going to work long term. I see it over and over again. You need to eat your carbs. And the final symptom I will talk about today from the low no-carb diet is a lot of anxiety or irritability. Because when our blood sugars drop too low, that also causes our mood to be very low. Many women don't realize how much their anxiety or their mood swings are connected to their food choices, especially if you are skipping breakfast or any meal, or you are trying to hold off eating, or you're doing intermittent fasting to avoid eating carbs. When your brain doesn't get a steady stream of glucose, you can feel very irritable, snappy, sad, anxious. You might crave sugar intensely and then feel guilty when you give in, which is not your fault. Your body is literally screaming at you to give it fuel, so it's going to start screaming for sugar because that is the fastest form of glucose that your body can take in. This can cause a lot of women to feel like they are addicted to carbs or they're addicted to sugar, but really your body is just desperately asking for fuel. If you just give your body a moderate amount of carbs and glucose on an average day, it won't have that massive screaming desire for sugar because it doesn't need it as desperately as it does when you cut it out. Just last week, I had a guest come on and talk very in depth about the gut microbiome. So I'm sure you already know that your gut is home to trillions of microbes. And many of the beneficial ones depend on prebiotic fibers and resistant starches to survive. When you eliminate carbs, you are eliminating those fibers and starches, which means you are starving your good gut bacteria. So they are starting to die off. you are losing that diversity in your gut microbiome, which is a huge predictor of gut and immune health. And then as those good gut bacteria are dying, you are ending up with more opportunistic bacteria, which is our quote unquote bad bacteria, yeast, or even overgrowths like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, aka SIBO, which further drives symptoms like bloating, gas, and fatigue. So it truly is not about what you remove. It is about what you're missing out on when you're not eating enough plant-based carbs. Now, I want to mention something that is very important, and I also want to speak on it very gently, but honestly, because I was there myself once upon a time. When you are constantly told that carbs are bad, and you start to feel guilty or anxious just thinking about eating a slice of fruit or a piece of bread, that is not wellness. That is not health. That is food fear. I had this experience myself. I was desperate for answers. I would have done anything to feel better. And I cut out so many foods from my diet. I felt very guilty if I strayed from that diet. I was insanely strict. It caused me a lot of stress. And at the end of the day, it did not do anything for me. Hey everyone, Carly here. If you are tired of feeling bloated and uncomfortable, which I know you are, I have something that can really help. My free ultimate guide to bloat busting. I've been there myself, and I know how frustrating it is to try super restrictive diets and expensive supplements without getting results. If those methods were going to work, they would have worked by now. That's why I created this guide to offer you a different approach. In the ultimate guide to bloat busting, you'll learn techniques to listen to your body and eat with intention, avoiding overeating and choosing foods that truly benefit you, tips for proper hydration to support digestion and reduce bloating, a guide to delicious foods that promote a healthy gut and how to easily incorporate them into your meals, and effective methods to manage stress, which plays a huge role in gut health. These simple, practical strategies can make a big difference in your daily life, helping you feel lighter, more energized, and comfortable in your own skin. Ready to ditch the bloat without strict diets or costly supplements? Download your free copy today at beyondbloated.com/ultimate-guide and start your journey to a bloat-free life. Now, let's get back to it. And I see it all the time in the women that I work with as well. They get stuck in the cycles of restricting all day long and then binging at night because they're having those intense sugar cravings. They're obsessing over every single ingredient and every single thing that they are eating. They feel like they failed just because they ate a sandwich one day. I want to ensure you and remind you that this is not your fault. Diet culture has done a number on us, unfortunately. But healing your gut, balancing your body, and regaining energy truly starts with releasing that fear around food, especially the foods that your body is actually craving. You should never feel guilty about eating a whole food like oatmeal, or have that sourdough sandwich, or eat the fruit, like these are all healthy, whole foods. There is absolutely nothing wrong with eating them on a regular basis. As I already mentioned, our gut runs on glucose, which is the simple sugar that comes from carbohydrates. The piece that people typically miss is that the bacteria that live in our gut microbiome depend on carbs too. Specifically, our beneficial bacteria need those prebiotic fibers and resistant starches to thrive. These are the types of carbs that aren't fully broken down in our small intestine. So instead, they travel all the way to the colon where they feed our good gut bugs because our gut microbiome is in the colon. When we feed our microbiome with enough of these gut-friendly carbs, it can produce more short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which lowers inflammation and supports the gut lining. It can also help crowd out the harmful or bad bacteria and yeast. And it also supports healthy digestion, immunity, and even brain health. So when you don't eat enough carbs, especially the plant-based ones, your good gut bacteria start to starve, which means that you are going to have fewer good gut bacteria, less microbial diversity, and a greater chance of overgrowths like Candida and SIBO. I am hoping by now you see the value in carbs, and if you are someone who might not be eating enough of these healthy carbohydrates, let me help you pick out some great ones to start reintroducing into your diet. Some of my favorite gut-friendly carbs that I always tell my clients to include in the diet are oats. These are rich in beta-glucans and prebiotic fibers. I eat oats almost every single day. Love them. Help keep me regular. They're versatile. They're delicious. And no, if you pair them with protein and healthy fats, they will not spike your blood sugar. I did a CGM monitor test and I was fine. Sweet potatoes, another fan favorite. These are very gentle on digestion. They're high in resistant starches when they are cooked and then cooled. So make a bunch of them, cool them, chuck them in your fridge. Now you've got resistant starch. Same goes for rice. If you cook and cool rice, it is also a great source of a resistant starch, which helps feed your good gut bacteria. Lentils and beans are very fiber-packed. They're blood sugar friendly, and they are great for motility. So if you are constipated, start eating more lentils and beans. Of course, we have fruit, especially right now during the summer when fruit is delicious and cheaper than normal. Fruit truly is nature's original fast fuel, especially fruits like berries, apples, bananas, kiwis, and one of my new favorites, mangoes. And finally, sourdough bread. Unless, of course, you have celiac disease, in which case, please do not eat sourdough bread. You may be able to tolerate sourdough bread if you have a gluten sensitivity or intolerance, but no promises. It is easier to digest than regular bread due to the fermentation process. And yes, you are allowed to eat bread. Please don't be scared of bread. It is a great vessel for so many things. I love avocado toast. I love sandwiches. I even love French toast. There is nothing wrong with bread. Eat it up. Those carbs that I listed are all whole, nourishing, and plant-based, and they are not the ultra-processed carbs that most people blame for their symptoms. I will agree that eating a box of cereal for breakfast is not a healthy carb, and going and buying the store-bought shelf bread is also not going to do you any favors. But that's not what we're talking about today. We are talking about the healthy, whole food, plant-based carbs that feed your good gut bugs and help give you energy and brain clarity and hormone regularity and help you lose weight and all the things that we have been talking about today. As far as gut health goes, I have already mentioned a few times how these healthy plant-based carbs help feed our good gut bacteria, which of course improves digestion, reduces bloating, and protects the gut lining. But eating more healthy carbs also helps support regular bowel movements because fiber draws water into the colon and helps move waste through the system. So if you aren't eating enough carbs, you're likely backed up. Carbs also help support hormone detoxification because fiber, which is in these healthy carbs, binds to excess estrogen and toxins and helps you excrete them through your poop. So it's literally helping you get out those toxins from your body. And finally, eating these healthy carbs helps prevent blood sugar crashes and binge cycles. Because when you restrict carbs for too long, your body will eventually override your willpower and demand that you eat carbs, usually in the form of like a late night sugar craving or energy crash. So if you find yourself mowing down on some cookies at midnight, it might be because you didn't eat enough healthy carbs throughout the day. As you start to bring back in more of these healthy carbs in a very strategic way, you will start to experience more regular, satisfying poops, less bloating and cramping, more stable energy and mood, healthier periods, and most importantly, a more flexible, trusting relationship with food. I know what it's like to feel restricted and feel like eating something like a sandwich is the worst thing you could do for yourself. And I also know how freeing and great it feels to no longer have that fear and truly just eat what you want, eat what you crave, because it's all healthy, whole foods. And there is absolutely no harm in eating the fruit. I've been on a mango binge. I've been eating a mango every day. I've been eating kiwis. I've been eating berries. I've been eating sourdough bread. And I love it and I feel great. One of the biggest fears around carbs is blood sugar regulation. And it is also one of the biggest myths that I have ever heard. You have probably heard that carbs will spike your insulin levels and make you store fat and cause energy crashes, but it's all bullshit. Carbs themselves are not the problem. It is how and when you are eating them that is going to impact your blood sugar. I have worked with so many women who blame bananas for their energy crash, when the real issue was they skipped breakfast, had coffee on an empty stomach, or had snacks all day long without ever eating a complete meal. I eat carbs every single day with every single meal. I wore a continuous glucose monitor for 2 weeks straight. I did an episode on that in the past if you want to hear more about it. I did not have blood sugar spikes because I paired my carbohydrates with protein and healthy fats. What will cause you to have a blood sugar spike and crash is skipping meals or going too long in between meals, eating carbs in isolation, meaning that if you just ate a piece of toast for breakfast or you had a handful of crackers for a snack, that will cause a blood sugar spike if that is the only thing you ate for that meal or snack. If you are constantly snacking throughout the day without letting your digestion reset, that can cause blood sugar issues. And one of the biggest problems out there is drinking caffeine on an empty stomach. This will spike your cortisol and blood sugar before you even eat anything for the day. The key is to just pair your carbs with protein, fat, and fiber. That way you slow down digestion, you stabilize your blood sugar, you will feel full for longer, and you will give your gut exactly what it needs to function well. As I have said a million times, the body is intelligent. If we just give it what it needs, it will do the rest. For example, let's say you are a toast girl and you have toast for breakfast. That's the only thing you had. That is going to cause you to have a very fast energy spike followed by a massive crash. Whereas if you have that same toast with eggs and avocado and greens, that is going to provide you with steady fuel, more satisfaction, and your body will stay in a more regulated state all morning long. In this example, we took the same carb, but we had a totally different impact by just pairing it with the protein, healthy fat, and fiber. This is why I am obsessed with talking about building a balanced plate instead of just cutting out whole food groups. It is not about being perfect. It is about how you combine these foods to keep your blood sugar level stable and your gut happy. I can link more episodes in the show notes about how to build a balanced plate, blood sugar regulation, because it all is important and it is all connected. I am going to encourage all of you to try experimenting with eating a carb-rich breakfast, like oatmeal with protein and berries and almond butter, and notice how it affects your energy and digestion. I encourage you to add more fiber-rich carbs at lunch, like the sweet potato or the rice, and track your afternoon cravings or bloating, see if there's any differences there. And try playing with your meal timing. Maybe space your meals by 3 to 4 hours instead of snacking constantly throughout the day. Eat breakfast if you usually don't. Don't work through lunch if you usually do. Try playing around with different meal timings and just notice how you feel. I can promise you that when you give your body the fuel that it has been missing, it will love you for it. And you will start to notice better poops, more stable energy, fewer cravings, and less fear around food, which is so, so important to me as someone who lived that food fear. I don't want you to live that way. I want you to enjoy eating, enjoy going out, and order what you want, not what you feel you have to have. So the next time you're tempted to cut carbs because you feel super bloated or exhausted or just out of control with your cravings, I want you to pause and ask yourself, am I really eating too many carbs, or am I really eating all these unhealthy carbs? Or am I just not eating them in a way that supports my body? Because once you start eating in a very balanced, consistent, and nourishing way, carbs really go from being scary and demonized to very supportive and delicious, which changes everything. Overall, carbs are not the enemy. They are actually essential for better digestion, metabolism, energy, and hormone balance. I really want to encourage you to challenge what you have been taught and what you have been preached and what you have heard over and over again. Because if you are someone who has been cutting carbs or eating very low carb, and you are still experiencing weight issues, exhaustion, digestive issues, hormonal imbalances, I hate to be the one to point this out, but it's not working for you, which isn't a bad thing, because I don't want you to cut out carbs for the rest of your life. I want you to try adding them back in. If you want different results, you need to do things differently. And you know I am here to support you if you are feeling ready to make that change. I work with women every single day who have been restricting their diets, not just with carbs, but with lots of other foods as well. And I help them find foods that work for them, with their bodies, to help them get their energy back, lose those stubborn pounds, get rid of the bloat, have regular poops, and be able to go out for lunch, for brunch, for dinner, for wherever they want to go, wear the cute dress, and feel confident and good that they're going to continue to feel confident and good throughout that entire meal. So if that is you, if you are looking for that kind of support to get those kind of results, you can apply to my one-on-one coaching program in the show notes, and I would love to chat with you to see if it is a good fit. I truly hope this episode gave you some insight and less fear around carbs. I want you to go and make yourself a nice, delicious sandwich for lunch or dinner. You deserve it. If you have any questions about anything I talked about today, send me a DM on Instagram at beyond.bloated. Send me an email, carlyclose@beyondbloated.com. I would love to chat more about this. I'm very passionate about this topic, as you can tell. I want you to eat and I want you to love it. If I don't hear from you, all good. You'll be hearing from me next week. Did you learn something new and useful today? If the answer is a big, resounding hell yeah, do me a favor. Subscribe to this podcast. Even better, toss a rating in there too. It helps more bloated babes discover this show and lets me keep bringing you this free, gut-loving content every single week. And hey, don't be greedy. Share this episode with your bestie who's always unbuttoning her pants after dinner. She will love you even more for it. Thanks for hanging out with me and showing your gut some love. Keep on putting what you learn into practice and you will be bloat-free in no time. Catch you in the next one. Bye.